The WNBA has seen drama, but this is a whole new level of chaotic, emotional, meltdown energy drama exploding across social media. All because Michael Porter Jr. made one of the most harmless, obvious basketball statements ever spoken in the history of common sense. And yet, somehow, it triggered a full-scale feminist earthquake. Welcome back to Her Hoops, where we break down the truth, the tension, and the unfiltered reality behind every WNBA storyline.
A woman, guess what? When I gotta come and drop 40 and I'm on my fucking period and I'm bleeding and my stomach hurts and my back hurts when y'all load manage.
I made a video the other day where him and I believe it was LaMelo Ball were talking about how 7th and 8th grade and 9th grade boys, future NBA players, but their 7th, 8th, and 9th grade selves, let's put it that way, would absolutely, positively destroy everybody that plays in the WNBA.
Because what started as a simple podcast conversation, literally just two NBA players casually saying that their middle school selves would dominate WNBA athletes, somehow spiraled into a complete emotional meltdown from certain corners of the league. And at the center of that explosion, former WNBA star Angel McCoughtry, who jumped into the conversation like someone lit a match under her seat. Angel didn't just disagree, she detonated.
I mean, Angel McCoughtry looks like an idiot here, ranting about things that, frankly, no sports fan gives a rat's about. No, I don't have the world's tiniest violin. The level of butthurt from some of these ladies when it comes to just saying out loud something that is the obvious it's crazy. It's baffling. And the idea that you're not supposed to speak it out loud?
Unleashing a minute-long rant about periods, motherhood, load management, and how men should only uplift women and never speak on comparisons, even comparisons that are factually obvious and not remotely insulting. But hold on, because while Angel was firing off an emotional TED Talk nobody asked for, another WNBA player stepped in. And her response? Completely different, completely honest, completely real. Sophie Cunningham, one of the most grounded and respected voices in the league.
Angel, why are men so obsessed with this conversation?
First of all, congratulations. You was dominating against women in the 8th grade. What does he want? Does he want a cookie? Want a medal for that? Like, the only thing that should be coming out of a man's mouth about women is uplifting her. I think the main thing we should be talking about, a woman, guess what? When I gotta come and drop 40 and I'm on my fucking period and I'm bleeding, and my stomach hurts and my back hurts when y'all load manage.
Didn't scream, didn't rage, didn't make excuses. She simply said what everyone already knows. Yeah, it's probably true. And just like that, the entire internet split in two. So today, we're diving deep into what Michael Porter Jr. actually said, why Angel McCoughtry went DEFCON 5 meltdown mode, why Sophie Cunningham's response hit harder than anything else, and what this entire situation exposes about the WNBA.
When she was playing, how many games were they playing in the WNBA? Like 32 a year? 32 a year? Something like that? Now they play, what, 44? Let's see, in the NBA they play 81 and have played 81 forever. She's not wrong about load management, by the way. That's some bullshit too. But the idea, the only thing that should come out of a man's mouth, nah, miss me with that bullshit.
But the awesome things we can do, let's highlight that. Let's highlight that. Guess what? We are wives. So it's not easy to take care of a husband and kids and come and dominate a sport. Let's talk about how strong and awesome that is.
Its insecurities and the ongoing gender politics circus surrounding women's sports. Because this story isn't just about basketball. It's about egos, optics, activism, and the uncomfortable truth people hate admitting. This is Her Hoops, and today's video gets real. Drop a like, hit subscribe, and buckle in, because we're just getting started.
Kobe don't say that kind of stuff about us. He never did. He only uplifted us and supported us. Bron don't talk that kind of stuff. Why the elites don't talk like that?
This is a narrative from Michael Porter.
Look, okay. Neither one of the guys that was talking about this was trying to talk shit about the WNBA. That's what they don't get. Nobody's attacking anybody. They had a conversation and they stated the obvious. They weren't launching into the fact that these WNBA players...
Before this whole controversy blew up, everything started with something so normal, so routine, that it's honestly shocking it sparked this much outrage. Michael Porter Jr. and LaMelo Ball were on a podcast, just talking hoops, talent levels, and development. Nothing political, nothing disrespectful. Just two NBA players reflecting on how different athletic ceilings are between men and women. And MPJ made a point that has been said by analysts, coaches, and athletes for decades. Middle school boys who eventually become NBA players are already physically superior, faster, stronger, more explosive than even elite adult women in almost every measurable category. This isn't hate. This isn't misogyny. This is biology plus elite athletic development. And let's be honest, everyone knows this. College coaches know it. WNBA players know it. Even Angel McCoughtry knows it, which is why her reaction felt so bizarrely emotional instead of logical. But here's where the plot twist hits. Because instead of addressing the statement directly or acknowledging the obvious difference, Angel responded like someone personally attacked her family tree. She launched into a rant about periods, childbirth, load management, husbands, kids, everything except the actual issue. It was less basketball analysis and more TikTok motivational speech gone off the rails. Meanwhile, WNBA fans were divided. Some agreed with Angel's emotional pushback, some rolled their eyes, and some just wanted the league to stop turning every conversation into a gender battlefield. But then came Sophie Cunningham, and that's where the story shifted. Sophie didn't dodge the question. She didn't play politics. She didn't pretend biology doesn't exist. She simply said what every coach, trainer, and athlete quietly understands. Men are bigger, stronger, more athletic. Of course they'd win. Boom. One sentence, no tears, no theatrics, just reality. And the internet immediately crowned her the most honest player in the WNBA. Because here's the deeper truth. The WNBA has been stuck between two narratives for years, wanting equality and respect, while simultaneously denying obvious competitive differences that don't diminish the women's game at all. But instead of embracing authenticity, the league often defaults to outrage whenever a comparison is made. This MPJ situation didn't create that tension, it revealed it. Michael Porter Jr. wasn't launching an attack. He wasn't calling the WNBA weak. He wasn't making fun of anyone. He was literally stating something that every trainer, scout, and athletic development expert knows. Elite male athletes develop explosiveness and strength absurdly early. That's why middle school boys who later become NBA players already look like different species compared to their peers. He said it casually, almost as a side note, and somehow it got spun into a national debate about respect, feminism, and whether men are allowed to talk honestly about sports anymore. But let's break it down clearly. MPJ and LaMelo were just reflecting on their development years. They weren't comparing themselves to WNBA legends. They weren't bragging. They weren't tearing down women's basketball. They were simply acknowledging the reality of elite male athleticism. Yet, Angel McCoughtry heard that and interpreted it as a full-blown attack on womanhood itself. She shifted the conversation into something completely unrelated, talking about menstrual cycles, pregnancies, marriage, childcare, load management, and a list of responsibilities that have nothing to do with the question. It was emotional, it was dramatic, and it avoided the topic entirely. While Angel spiraled into a passionate monologue rooted in feelings, Sophie Cunningham took the exact opposite approach, grounded, neutral, logical. She didn't take it personally. She didn't get offended. She didn't turn it into a gender war. She simply acknowledged the obvious physical gap and moved on. And that difference in response exposed the entire heart of the issue. Some WNBA players want truth. Some want validation. Some want respect. Some want to pretend the biological gap doesn't exist. And some want men to stop talking entirely unless they're offering praise. But this conversation wasn't about gender roles or domestic responsibilities. It was about athletic comparison. Nothing more, nothing less. And the outrage around it proved that the WNBA's public image remains fragile, not because of lack of talent, but because of how tightly some players cling to talking points instead of reality. MPJ wasn't trying to ignite drama, but the reaction he got? That's where all the real drama began. Things really exploded once Angel's rant started making the rounds online. It wasn't just that she disagreed. Disagreements are normal. It was the tone, the defensiveness, the emotional spiraling. She wasn't responding like an athlete making a counterpoint. She was responding like someone who felt personally attacked by the existence of basic biology. She demanded that men only uplift women. She claimed men shouldn't talk about comparisons at all. She insisted that NBA players owe constant positivity and nothing else. But the contradiction was impossible to ignore. Angel wanted open praise from men, but shut down any conversation that wasn't praise. She wanted equality, but also wanted protected topics that men aren't allowed to discuss. She wanted respect, yet immediately dismissed MPJ and LaMelo as immature for having a harmless conversation on their own podcast. That wasn't empowerment. That was emotional control disguised as advocacy. And the internet saw right through it. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham unintentionally exposed the gap even more. Not the physical gap between men and women, but the worldview gap. Sophie answered with realism. Angel answered with ideology. Sophie responded like a professional athlete. Angel responded like a Twitter activist with a ring light. This contrast triggered a bigger conversation. Why does the WNBA keep putting its most emotional voices front and center? And why do its most rational voices get ignored? Because every time a player lashes out over something this small, it reinforces the stereotype that the league is overly sensitive and constantly looking for reasons to be offended. And that perception hurts the players who just want to hoop, want to grow the game, and want honest conversations without the theatrics. And here's where things escalate even further. Angel's meltdown didn't just make her look unreasonable, it dragged the entire league into a gender politics battlefield that never needed to exist. Suddenly, the debate wasn't just about athletic comparison anymore. It turned into a symbolic fight about womanhood, validation, sexism, biology, respect, and whether men are even allowed to speak honestly. A harmless statement turned into a cultural explosion, and the WNBA found itself right at the center again, for all the wrong reasons. Now we get into the heart of the matter. Beyond the drama, beyond the tweets and hot takes, this story exposes the raw realities of professional basketball and the realities of being a female athlete in the WNBA. Sophie Cunningham's response wasn't just smart, it was a masterclass in clarity. She acknowledged what everyone watching already knew. Men are generally bigger, stronger, and more explosive, especially elite NBA-level talent. Saying that doesn't diminish women's basketball. It doesn't erase the incredible skill, craft, and toughness WNBA players display every night. It just states a fact that so many want to ignore. Meanwhile, Angel McCoughtry's response highlighted another truth: the emotional labor female athletes are expected to carry. They balance personal life, family, and professional sport, and society constantly asks them to perform perfection in all areas. Angel framed her outrage around those pressures, but in doing so, she conflated systemic challenges with a simple statement about athletic performance. The nuance was lost, and the conversation got hijacked by ideology rather than facts. And the more you break it down, the clearer it becomes. Sophie's grounded approach resonates because it's relatable. She doesn't overcomplicate, overreact, or weaponize her platform for virtue signaling. She talks like an athlete who understands the game, the context, and the difference between respect and exaggeration. That's why fans and analysts immediately gravitated toward her statement, calling her the realest voice in the league. This isn't about men versus women. It's about honesty, professionalism, and perspective. It's about acknowledging differences without diminishing talent. It's about recognizing the dedication required to perform at an elite level while avoiding the trap of letting ego dictate conversation. Michael Porter Jr.'s original statement was innocuous. The fallout exposed layers of tension within the league. tensions between perception and reality, emotion and fact, activism and athletic truth. And let's not ignore the technical side. Comparing middle school NBA caliber boys to adult women is like comparing apples to grapefruits in physicality. It's obvious, measurable, and scientifically supported. That doesn't make WNBA players any less impressive. It doesn't erase the intensity of their training, the finesse of their skill, or the history of trailblazing they carry on their shoulders. It just reminds everyone watching that athletic differences exist, and acknowledging them doesn't require outrage. The broader impact of this situation goes far beyond a single podcast clip or a single player's rant. What MPJ and LaMelo said, and the reactions it sparked, shines a spotlight on the ongoing tension between the WNBA's public image and the reality of professional women's sports. The league wants recognition, respect, and equal treatment, but it often struggles to handle criticism, even when it's completely factual and not intended to demean anyone. This isn't about talent, it's about perception, narrative control, and the way emotion sometimes overtakes reason. Angel's meltdown, while understandable on a human level, inadvertently reinforced a stereotype the league should be trying to dismantle. The overly sensitive athlete who can't separate personal identity from discussion of performance. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham's grounded, honest approach became a case study in credibility, relatability, and leadership. Fans, commentators, and analysts immediately gravitated toward her response, proving that honesty resonates more than outrage, and that acknowledging reality doesn't equate to disrespect. This moment also exposes a cultural gap in sports media coverage. Male athletes routinely make factual statements about development, size, and skill gaps without massive backlash. Female athletes, however, are often put in the impossible position of defending their legitimacy while navigating expectations of advocacy, perfection, and representation. The conversation around MPJ's comments shows just how fraught this dynamic can be, and how it can distract from the actual sport, performance, and achievement. At the same time, it highlights the growing power of players like Sophie Cunningham, who are unafraid to speak the truth without compromising professionalism. It's a lesson for the league and its fans. Credibility, honesty, and clear-headed commentary win respect, even in the face of controversy. Players who engage in measured, realistic discussion build influence, while those who react primarily from emotion risk being seen as performative or defensive. Ultimately, this episode isn't just about Michael Porter Jr. or Angel McCoughtry or Sophie Cunningham. It's about how the WNBA navigates its own narrative in a world that constantly scrutinizes, celebrates, and critiques it. It's about the fine line between advocacy and overreaction, between ego and perspective, and between truth and performance. And most importantly, it's about the growing recognition that realistic conversations about sports are possible without undermining women's achievements. A lesson the league may need to embrace if it wants to continue growing its credibility and audience. And here's where we bring it all home. This entire saga, Michael Porter Jr.'s harmless comment, Angel McCoughtry's emotional explosion, and Sophie Cunningham's calm, grounded response, is more than just a viral moment. It's a mirror reflecting the WNBA's current crossroads. A league filled with extraordinary talent, but still negotiating its public image, expectations, and cultural narrative. Michael Porter Jr. didn't set out to attack women's basketball. He wasn't trying to disrespect anyone. He was making an observation based on his own experience, as any athlete might do when reflecting on development and performance. Yet the reaction exposed a larger issue: the fragility of conversation when reality collides with identity politics. Suddenly, a simple statement became a battleground over ego, gender, and what's allowed in sports commentary. Angel McCoughtry's response, while heartfelt and rooted in personal experience, reminded the public that the WNBA is still navigating how its voices are perceived. Outrage and emotional defensiveness may get attention, but it also risks clouding the respect the league deserves for its athletes' dedication, skill, and achievements. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham's reaction was a masterclass in honesty and composure. She acknowledged reality without diminishing women's accomplishments, demonstrating that credibility and relatability always win in the long run. This moment is a lesson for fans, analysts, and athletes alike. Honesty does not equal disrespect. The league thrives when players can speak truthfully about competition, performance, and differences, without fear of being labeled insensitive. WNBA stars already perform under pressures most fans will never understand, juggling professional careers, personal life, and public scrutiny. Celebrating their skill, acknowledging challenges, and allowing factual conversations are not mutually exclusive. For the WNBA, the takeaway is clear. Authenticity, grounded commentary, and transparent conversations will strengthen the league's credibility far more than outrage ever will. And for fans of the game, it's a reminder to separate fact from feelings, observation from offense, and discussion from attack. So here's the final verdict. Michael Porter Jr.'s statement wasn't a threat. Angel McCoughtry's meltdown was an emotional reaction that overshadowed the real issue. Sophie Cunningham's honesty became the voice of reason that fans gravitated toward. And through it all, the WNBA continues to evolve, proving that truth, perspective, and composure always matter, on and off the court. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, smash that subscribe button, and join us at Her Hoops for every deep dive, hot take, and unfiltered WNBA story. Comment below with your thoughts. Who handled this situation better? And as always, stay tuned because the next big story is just around the corner.